is a conceptual being who gains and uses knowledge, again, only by a volitional choice, a volitional cognitive effort. And it is because one must exercise his volitional faculty, make a specific effort of will to initiate and sustain a process of thought that many don't do it. They apparently find the effort involved too much or not to their liking. The approach of most bodybuilders to training from the start amounts to little more than a blind leap into the dark. Throughout life, we all encounter innumerable theories on every subject, from religion to philosophy, to politics, to the healing arts, and of course, bodybuilding exercise. And because so few in our culture were taught to think rationally and to judge critically, most are left disconcertingly confused when confronted with the necessity of making an intellectual choice, such as which training theory to employ. In fact, I realized that I was like this when I reached my late teens. Most symptomatic was my notion that if something was printed, it obviously had to be true. I learned later, of course, that my notion was illogical, as not everything that's printed could possibly be true, since so many notions, ideas, conflict with other ideas. It was Arthur Jones who divested me of that bit of ragtag illogic when he barked, "Mike, just because something is printed doesn't mean it has to be true. In fact, 90% of what is printed on all subjects is outright hogwash." And now, some 25 years later, a lot of experience, study, and thinking later, I realize Arthur was being charitable. It's more like 98% of what is published on all subjects is garbage. As much as this seminar is about the human body and its improvement, it is also about the mind and its improvement. Why would a seminar on bodybuilding be about the human mind? Because obviously intelligence is what makes it possible to understand anything at all, including exercise science, and that which is of most interest to all of us here today, and that is us, the members of the species man, the divine spark in the great chain of being. It has been averred all too often that bodybuilders are dumb or stupid, which simply isn't true, as evidenced by the number of phone calls I receive from intelligent bodybuilders every day. These include people from all walks of life, such as medical doctors, lawyers, physicists, stockbrokers, students, people who also just happen to be bodybuilders. I will not talk down on the assumption that the audience so lacks intellectual depth that you are incapable of exercising the mental effort required to integrate knowledge of a higher order. Nor will I insult your intelligence by expecting you to accept anything I say simply because I've won a few bodybuilding contests. It is only on the basis of grasping the logic of an argument that one should agree. Nor will I bore you with the type of intellectual pablum you've read so often in some of the muscle magazines. In case you haven't noticed, the vast majority of articles written on the subject of training consist of little more than a series of arbitrary, biblical-like commandments. Thou shalt perform 5 sets of this exercise, and thou shalt perform 5 sets of that one. Why? Blank out. No reason, no logic ever provided. The realm of the intellect audience is more demanding than the average bodybuilder and writer recognizes, and that formulating a valid, non-contradictory theory of training requires knowledge of the nature of human physiology, as well as knowledge of the nature of man's mind and his method of using it, namely logic. A mere passionate discharge of the arbitrary contents of one's subconscious onto a piece of paper is just that, intellectual vomitus. As a man of reason, I seek to act only on the basis of understanding the reasons for doing something, as all mature adults should. And that, once again, is what this seminar is about: a reasoned, principled, logical approach to productive bodybuilding exercise, one that can be learned by anyone willing to exercise the required mental effort. Or as Arthur Jones used to say, just think a little bit more than none. You'd be surprised at the results. I presume, after all, you came to Seattle Center today because of your enthusiastic desire to be a successful bodybuilder or strength athlete, whether to actualize your potential for personal reasons or to be Mr. Washington State, world champion, or Mr. Olympia. And that you already understand that the basis of a rational approach to bodybuilding or any other arena of human endeavor is the recognition that only the specific appropriate knowledge can lead one to engage in the specific actions required to achieve a goal. The material in today's seminar, no, is not infinitely complex, but it's not intellectual pabulum either. Why not cast aside all other concerns for now, get intense mentally, focus on the logic of my ideas, and once and for all, clear up any and all confusion. Then you will be able to proceed with the greatest power possible to man, not muscular power, but the power of certainty. There does exist a viable intellectual discipline, exercise science. In the next section, I will explain the logically interdependent hierarchy of ideas that constitutes exercise science, again, so that you may learn to think logically about the subject and go on confidently and successfully to achieve your bodybuilding goals. Before concluding, however, I'm going to address one important issue before concluding this introductory material and moving on to the theoretical material. I'd like to address one important issue that will serve as a direct prelude to the theory. And it has to do with the near universal confusion that exists with regard to the fact that there can only be one valid theory of productive bodybuilding exercise or anything else. This confusion is centrally responsible for most of the failures in bodybuilding, and I can tell you unequivocally without a doubt, having been a trainer for the past 10 years, dealing with up to 50 and 60 people a day on the phone and in person, more bodybuilders fail to achieve their goals than succeed. Most bodybuilders make the mistake of approaching the subject of training with the idea that all training theories have some merit or are of equal validity. Then they waste precious, precious time frantically trying one after the other in the hope that somehow, someday, some way, they'll happen upon something that works. And as a result, very few bodybuilders achieve their goals. It could not possibly be true, audience, that all, or many, or even two training theories are of equal validity. Since a theory is a set of abstract principles which purports to be either a correct description of some aspect of reality and or a guide for successful human action, and there is only one reality, obviously, therefore there is and can be only one valid theory of any aspect of it. Just as there is only one valid theory of physics, electronics, chemistry, medicine, epistemology, relativity, evolution. Likewise, there is but one true theory, one valid theory of productive bodybuilding exercise, and it just so happens to be the theory of high-intensity exercise. It has to be something, right? Well, this is what it is. It's not so difficult to grasp or understand. The science of exercise, like the science of medicine, is based on an understanding of the principles of human physiology. I emphasize the word human, meaning, of course, that these principles are universal, i.e. applicable to every member of the species. If everyone's cells, muscles, and organs were constituted and functioned differently, doctors couldn't make diagnoses, dispense medicines, or perform surgeries. It is this fact, the fact that the basic principles of human physiology are universal, that makes it possible for me to state with absolute certainty that there is only one valid theory of training, i.e. one best way to train. It is not my mere opinion that every human being requires intense training to stimulate growth. It is a well-authenticated fact beyond debate. And because the magnitude of the toll on the body's limited recovery ability made by high-intensity training is so enormous, such training must be brief and infrequent to allow for the production of an increase. The major philosophic theme of this seminar is that without a firm intellectual grasp of and guidance by a valid theory, no one can be certain he is on the right course. A sane individual setting out on a trip from Los Angeles to New York would consult a map being a theory of how to get from one place to another. Without it, he would get lost, lose whatever certainty and motivation he had, and terminate his effort along the way. Knowledge, human knowledge, like any other value, has to be gained through a volitional effort. an act of choice. Anyone smart enough to learn the ABCs, write a sentence, or read a book with enough effort can make use of the knowledge he gains today. Recently, one of my phone consultation clients expressed considerable astonishment that he had been able to realize so much uninterrupted progress with heavy-duty, high-intensity training. And I explained to my client that such should not be a surprise, that there's no mystery to any of this, that people have been growing muscles beyond normal levels for at least 10,000 years, that we live in a knowable, rational universe of absolute clear-cut identity, guided by one set of immutable, never-changing principles, and that the cause and effect relationship between intense exercise and muscle growth has been understood for quite some time, even though the majority of self-styled experts in this field fail to grasp it. I concluded by pointing out to this individual that it is reality and its laws, the laws of nature, that dictate the causes which must be enacted to affect the buildup of muscle mass beyond normal levels, and that once these causes are clearly understood, the task of developing bigger and stronger muscles, in fact, while requiring high-intensity effort, is really quite simple. There's nothing so difficult about what's going on with all this in terms of how to build big muscle. It really is quite simple. Nature also dictates what mental causes must be enacted to affect an intellectual understanding on any subject or issue. One must first recognize that all human knowledge has a nature. Remember, we're talking about the laws of nature here, my favorite subject. You must recognize that all human knowledge has a nature or identity. All human knowledge, I repeat, all human knowledge is hierarchical in structure with a base of fundamental ideas or principles which must be first grasped before moving up the logical ladder or hierarchy to more complex derivative ideas. This may be most readily observed in mathematical knowledge or science, where the fundamentals, of course, are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It is only on the basis of first grasping these fundamental principles that one may then move to more complex derivative knowledge, such as algebra and calculus. Now, the major reason most bodybuilders remain confused is that they don't understand that the context of knowledge, which constitutes bodybuilding science, has a base of fundamental principles too, just like mathematics. And that these relate to the issues of intensity, volume, and frequency. In fact, I hear bodybuilders every day droning on and on endlessly, asking questions that are something like the equivalent of algebra or calculus, while they have yet to grasp the 2 + 2 = 4 of bodybuilding. The following audience will help you gain that knowledge.